Mark chapter 9. As we're looking at this way to greatness, and you can see the path is very clear on which way you're supposed to go to get to greatness. Road signs can be confusing sometimes, can't they? I was 2 years ago going to my senior pastor's conference, something I enjoy doing every year to get just kind of recharged as a pastor and fresh vision for our church. And 2 years ago, I was really blessed because my good friend Ben Parkin, pardon me, and Julio, the pastor, the Spanish pastor at Calvary Chapel, Boise, were going to be riding with me. And I've been to the pastor's conference many times. Every year, fly to Ontario, shuttle to the rental car place, fly out on Haven, and take a left on I-60. You can just head south and then Marietta. Very easy drive. And so Julio and Ben Parkin are with me, and I don't know what happened, but somewhere there was a turn or something that I missed or made that I wasn't supposed to, and we started heading east instead of south. And I didn't, and the landscape kind of looks the same, so I didn't really notice at first, and then all of a sudden I thought, man, this doesn't seem right. Something seems wrong. I mean, I'm heading completely the wrong direction. Something seems wrong. And so I look at the little thing on my car, it's saying east. I'm like, that's not right. They have a little thing that tells you which direction you're going. I'm like, that's not right. So I pull off, and when you're with a couple colleagues and dear friends of yours, it kind of doesn't rate real high on the coolness factor when you're the one in charge and you get lost. And then to add to that, I had to go into a gas station and heaven forbid, ask, pardon me, I'm still trying to get over this thing. Dr. Oz said it takes 18 days to get rid of this cough, so bear with me, it's going to be a few. Anyway, so I actually had to ask for directions, which immediately, just getting lost, but then asking for directions, I automatically had to surrender my man card to Ben and Julio. But by God's grace, I was able to, on our way there, I found an In-N-Out burger, and I was able to purchase my man card back with 2 double-doubles and some animalized fries. And everything was good again. But last year, I just surrendered it, and Ben drove. But doesn't that happen sometimes? I think that just in life, nothing worse than getting lost. But how often does that happen in our spiritual walk where we seem to be just on track with the Lord? Have you guys ever felt that way? Everything's just been going so good, just my relationship with the Lord's so awesome. And then the next thing you know, you made a left turn at Albuquerque or something, and you're not sure where you are. You're like, I'm heading in the wrong direction. Something's wrong about this. And maybe that's why you're here this morning, is because you feel like, I just need some direction. So you stopped off here to maybe get some directions to get back on track. And that's what we need. It's almost constant in our Christian walk that we need to be put back on track and heading in the right direction and refocusing on Jesus. Because we want to succeed, right? Who wants to fail at Christianity? Because failing at Christianity is failing at life, isn't it? I don't think we wake up in the morning and think, I think I'm going to head the wrong direction today and just really blow my life and fail. Or maybe we do that anyway, but I don't think we really, excuse me, I don't think we really want to. And so, as we look at this today, we're going to be looking at succeeding at Christianity and really the way to greatness as a Christian and what that means. C.S. Lewis said this: we all want to progress, but progress means getting nearer to the place we want to be. And if I've taken a wrong turn, then to go forward does not get you any nearer. If you are on the wrong road, progress means to do an about turn and walking back to the road. And in this case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive man. Last time, as we looked at our text, Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he was talking about greatness, which we're going to continue today. But then in the middle of his talk to them, John realized something, and he asks a question. And so we start out in verse 38, is where we were. Mark 9, verse 38. It says, "Now John answered him, saying, 'Teacher, we saw someone who does not follow us, casting out demons in your name.'" Oh, thank you, dear. Okay, I'm all better now. Or it'll make it worse, we'll see. Okay. "We saw someone who did not follow us casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow us. But Jesus said, 'Do not forbid him, for no one who works a miracle in my name can soon afterwards speak evil of me. For he who is not against us is on our side. For whoever gives you a cup of water to drink in my name, because you belong to Christ, assuredly I say to you, he will by no means lose his reward. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believes in me to stumble, it would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck and he were to be thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It's better for you to enter into life maimed than to have two hands to go to hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where their worm does not die and their fire is not quenched. And if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It's better for you to enter life lame rather than to have 2 feet to be cast into hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hell fire, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. For everyone will be seasoned with fire, and every sacrifice will be seasoned with salt. Salt is good, but if the salt loses its flavor, how will it be seasoned? Have salt in yourselves, and have peace with one another." Now, as we've been going through the Gospel of Mark, we've been looking for the authentic Jesus, and I think that we see some pretty radical things that Jesus is talking about here, and it tells us a lot about who Jesus is. And so we're going to be looking at those things as we go through, using the Gospel of Mark as kind of an authenticity marker to see if the Jesus that we've received is a counterfeit or is the real Jesus. And so keep that in mind as we go through. But what we see here is we see that Jesus is talking to these disciples about greatness is the context. And that's a very different direction. What he's saying here is a very different direction than the world would send you. If you said, "Hey, I want to be great," or "I want to do great things," and you're reading books that would say this is what the world's idea of how to become great is. And Jesus' ideas are very, very different. In fact, counterintuitive to us, it would seem. And it started back in verse 33 when Jesus asked his disciples what they'd been arguing about. Now, of course, they didn't want to tell him because what they'd been arguing about is who was going to be the greatest. They literally, this is what these guys would talk about as they walked along the road. They would say, "Well, I think that I'm probably going to be the greatest in the kingdom of God." And another guy would be like, "No, I don't know, you're pretty great, but what about Peter, or what about me?" And they argue. They argue about this stuff. It seems kind of ridiculous. But this is what they would do. And so Jesus kind of point blanks and he says, "Hey, when you guys were talking back on the road, what were you talking about?" Of course, Jesus knew. He says, "What are you guys talking about?" And they didn't say anything because they were arguing about who'd be the greatest. And so, in verse 35 it says, "And he sat down and called the 12 and said to them, 'If anyone desires to be first, he shall be last and servant of all.' Then he took a little child and set him in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said to them, 'Whoever receives one of......'" I'm sorry. You know what? Under here. See if I can ground it, frog. Okay. So he took a child and set them in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever receives one of these little children in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me."